They say silence is golden. Maybe once I believed that too. But after you've buried enough friends, outlived your kin, and watched too many fires burn down to nothing but ash, silence don't sound like peace. It sounds like ghosts. I'd been up at Hollow Creek for near 6 winters by then. Just me, a crippled rooster, and a rifle I hadn't touched since the last time someone thought I was worth robbing. Didn't get visitors. Didn't want them. That night, the wind had a mean curl to it, the kind that creeps under the floorboards and whispers about what you've lost. The fire was low. I was sitting in my chair with the quilt pulled over my knees, the same quilt my wife stitched back when we still had a reason to plan for spring. Then came the knock. Soft, measured, like it knew I was listening. I didn't move at first. Folk don't knock out here, they shout. Or they shoot. But something in that sound, it wasn't threat, it was grief, knocking with bare knuckles. When I opened the door, snow swept in like a ghost's breath. And there he was, barefoot, no coat, rope burns on his wrists, a small wooden carving in his hands like it was the last thing left worth holding. Didn't say a word. Just looked at me like he'd been waiting years to be seen. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. Didn't feel old. Didn't feel numb. I felt needed. And maybe that's the worst kind of salvation, the kind that don't ask first. But I let him in. They say a man don't need much to survive out here, a fire, a rifle, and a reason to keep waking up. But truth is, that last one's the hardest. He didn't give me his name that night. Didn't need to. Some names get burned off long before the tongue forgets how to speak them. The boy sat by the hearth legs, drawn up eyes fixed on the fire like it owed him answers. I handed him the thinner blanket, the heavy quilt. That one still held my daughter's scent, or maybe just her memory. Either way, I wasn't ready to pass it on. He didn't reach for it, just wrapped himself in the scratchy wool like it was good enough, like he'd learned not to ask for more than what was handed. I watched him a while, the way he cradled that wooden carving in his hands like it was a heartbeat he didn't want to let go. Couldn't tell what it was at first, a bird maybe, or a horse, or just a scrap of something that once gave him comfort. I ladled out stew rabbit beans, a sliver of last winter's onion. He didn't gobble it down. Ate like a man twice his age, slow, careful, like he was making a deal with his stomach not to betray him. You see that kind of eating in boys who've gone too long with nothing. When he finished, he didn't thank me. Didn't speak at all. Just took a coal stub from the hearth and started drawing in the ash. At first, I thought it was scribbled nervous hands passing time, but then the lines took shape: a wagon, a woman, a boy, and behind them, a shadow, long, twisting. I didn't say a word. He stared at that shadow like it still had hands. I knelt beside the ash and asked, "Careful that your mama?" He didn't nod, didn't blink, just rubbed his thumb over the woman's charcoal hand and whispered something so soft it almost didn't make the air. "Virgil." The name sat wrong. Didn't sound like kin, sounded like something sharp. I didn't press. You learn not to dig too deep too fast. Grief's like thin ice, press the wrong spot and it'll crack out from under you. Still, the name hung in the room like smoke that wouldn't clear. I threw another log on the fire. He didn't move, didn't flinch, just curled tighter. Not from fear, from memory. The kind that wraps itself around your ribs and never quite lets go. That night, I sat in my chair, rifle across my lap. Didn't sleep much. Not from worry, but from knowing. Knowing that a child don't end up barefoot in a blizzard for no simple reason. He didn't stir once. Just slept curled near the hearth, still holding that carving like it was the only part of him no one had stolen yet. By morning, the wind had eased. Just a whisper now, brushing snow off the eaves. I brewed coffee thick enough to chew and handed him a second cup. He looked at it like it might vanish, then took it in both hands, careful. I asked gentle, "Do you remember your name?" He met my eyes. And what I saw wasn't confusion, wasn't fear. It was absence. Like the name had been taken, scrubbed out, same as a brand on a rustler's horse. So I said, "Then I'll call you Caleb. Means faithful." He blinked. "Not to me," I added, "to yourself. That's more than most men manage." He didn't smile, but he didn't look away either. Later that morning, I showed him the coop. What was left of it anyhow. Hawks had thinned my hens last winter, but a few stubborn ones remained. Caleb didn't flinch when they pecked. Just stood still, hands loose, eyes watching how they moved like he'd done this before. One of the hens got his thumb pretty good. He held it up to me, not crying, just showing it like proof. Pain don't surprise boys like him anymore. That afternoon, he stacked the firewood without being told. Neat, straight rows. Swept the porch too. I didn't ask why, didn't need to. That night I laid the old quilt over the cot, the one with the stars stitched into it, blue thread fading with time. He touched the edge once, soft, reverent, then laid down like he knew it was meant for someone who never came home. Outside the wind rose again, not cruel, not yet, just whispering. But inside something had shifted. He didn't cry, didn't hum, didn't draw. But when I passed by the hearth on my way to pour one last cup of water, I saw it faint, drawn in ash. 3 dots. A line connecting 2. The third left alone. I stared at it. Didn't ask which dot he thought he was. Some answers don't need words. They're just felt. And that night, for the first time in years, I left the rifle by the door. Not out of comfort, out of purpose. Something was coming. I didn't know what. But I knew this much: I wouldn't let it take him too. Some ghosts don't haunt you with chains. They ride in slow, dusty boots, empty eyes, words sharp as nails and just as cold. By the end of that first week, the boy Caleb, as I'd come to call him, was moving different. Not soft, not relaxed, but deliberate. Like he'd stopped waiting for the floor to cave in. He never asked for anything. Just showed up beside me each morning like he belonged. He'd fetch kindling from behind the barn, carry water in the dented tin pail, watch me repair the chicken wire like it might explain how the world holds itself together. We didn't talk much. Didn't need to. Some kind of rhythm settled between us, quiet, steady, like a wagon wheel rolling over well-worn dirt. One morning I rode down into town. Needed flour, maybe a spool of thread. I hadn't shopped for 2 in a long while. At the general store I heard 'em. 2 women by the bolts of calico talking just loud enough for my back to stiffen. Reckon she's taking in a boy now, not her blood. Some women can't let go. Lose a child and suddenly every stray looks like salvation. I didn't turn. Didn't need to. Let 'em think what they pleased. A body gets to a certain age and other folks' opinions weigh about as much as a breath in a blizzard. But it settled in my bones anyway. Like judgment always does. I bought what I came for and rode back up Hollow Creek fast as the snow would let me. When I came around the bend, I saw 'em. Tracks, fresh, deep. Too deep for a child. Not mine. Not Caleb's. Someone had come up the ridge. Hadn't knocked. At the barn, I found it scrap paper nailed right to the door. Big ugly letters scrawled in charcoal. You'll pay for keeping what ain't yours. No name, no mark. Just the stink of old cruelty wearing new boots. I didn't show Caleb. Didn't need to. That night I stirred stew over the fire. He sat by the hearth quiet as ever. But I noticed he wasn't drawing in the ash this time. Wasn't humming neither. Just staring into the flames like they might reach back. I asked casual like, "You ever hear that name again, Virgil?" He didn't move. Didn't blink. Just whispered Mama's brother. My gut clenched, he went on, voice flat. Said I ate too much. Said I'd fetch more use tied to the wagon than sitting in it. I could barely breathe. He tied me up, told me to hush, then rode off with the horses. No tremble, no tears, just truth. A boy shouldn't know how to deliver facts like that. Like scars don't bleed when you name them. I sat down beside him, not close enough to spook him, just near enough so the fire lit both our faces. I ain't sending you back, I said. He looked up, not shocked at the words, but at how sure I sounded when I said them. Like nobody'd ever meant anything for him before. Outside, the wind kicked up again, rattled the shutters. He didn't flinch, but he did whisper, barely audible. He's coming back. Men like that don't like being told no. I didn't answer right away. Didn't need to. Next morning, I pulled out the old iron bar I hadn't touched since the blizzard of '89, reinforced the door, tightened the hinges, checked the rifle, oiled the lanterns. Caleb didn't ask why, just watched, like he'd been waiting for someone to care enough to be ready. That night, he drew again in the ash. 3 dots. But this time, the middle one was scratched through clean. I stared at it, then asked low, "You think you're the one crossed out?" He shook his head. "That's Virgil," he said. I didn't push, didn't praise. Just let the silence stretch long enough for the truth to settle. That evening, as I sharpened the carving knife, Caleb slipped outside. When he came back in, he carried a stick of pine. Just a sliver. He didn't hand it to me. Just set it by the hearth and said, "For next time." For what I asked. For carving someone who fights back. I didn't smile, didn't cry, just nodded. That night, he moved his blanket closer to my chair. Didn't say a word. Didn't have to. He'd stopped drawing himself alone. And that meant something. They came at dusk. Not in a roar, not guns blazing. Just slow, measured. The kind of slow that says a man's not in a rush because he thinks the ending's already his. 3 riders' horses coated in red dust, like they'd crossed a dozen counties without stopping, their shadows long across the ridge. I was splitting wood out back when I saw him crest the hill, one with a scar split clean through his upper lip like a busted horseshoe. Another nursing a bottle swaying in the saddle like liquor was the only thing holding his spine up straight. The third one didn't speak, didn't blink, just rode with a rope coiled neat on his shoulder. Caleb was feeding the chickens. I saw his back stiffen the moment the riders came into view. He didn't drop the bucket, didn't cry out. He just froze, like prey that's already smelled the snare. I didn't shout, didn't grab my shotgun yet, just said steady, go inside. He didn't argue, didn't look back, walked into the cabin like his feet had done it 100 times, but his bones were remembering the last time someone told him to run. I wiped my hands on my coat and stepped onto the porch. The wind had gone still, that kind of quiet you only get before the storm breaks. The one with the scar dismounted first, spat into the dirt. His voice was too casual. Evening, ma'am, he said. I didn't correct him, didn't smile, didn't invite him to try again. He jerked his thumb toward the cabin behind me. Heard you been harboring a boy. One Virgil left behind. We come to collect. The man with the bottle let out a chuckle that curdled the air. The silent one, the one with the rope, just watched me like I was a stump in his path. I didn't move, didn't blink. He's not yours, I said. Scarface grinned. He ain't yours either. He took a step forward. And that's when Caleb came back out, barefoot, holding the wooden carving in both hands, the one he'd worked on all week. 3 figures. The tallest with a crooked hat, the smallest holding a stick. He didn't raise his voice, didn't shake, just said flat, you left me. His eyes locked on the man with the rope. You said I was worth a saddle, nothing more. For a moment, nobody breathed. Then the bottle man shifted like he just realized the cold. Scarface spat again. You got no claim on the boy, he said. He's payment. I stepped off the porch, felt the frozen dirt under my boots, felt the crack in my knees where the cold always comes in first. Then I looked him dead in the eyes. I don't need a claim. I've got a door and a choice. The rope man started forward. Caleb flinched. That's when I raised the shotgun. Didn't point it. Just let the sun catch the barrel. This is your only warning, I said. You ride now or you don't ride again. The wind kicked up again, tore through the trees like it had teeth. For a second, I saw the calculation behind Scarface's eyes, the way his jaw set. But it was the bottle man who spoke. Ain't worth it, he muttered. Kid's broken anyway. They turned slow, not in fear, in insult. They thought they still owned the world. But when they looked back, it wasn't me they stared at. It was Caleb. And for the first time, he stared back. Not with defiance, but with something quieter. A refusal. They rode off into the dusk, hooves leaving divots in the snow, curses trailing behind like dust off a trail wagon. And just like that, they were gone. But we both knew it wasn't over. Not yet. That night, Caleb sat by the hearth, carving clutched to his chest. He didn't eat much, didn't draw in the ash, just stared into the fire like it held answers he didn't have the words to ask. I poured a tin of broth, sat beside him, let the silence sit a while. Then he said, voice soft, they'll come again, won't they? I nodded. Maybe. He looked down. What if I left, went far? Maybe they'd stop looking. I set my cup down, placed a hand on his shoulder. They're not chasing you. They're chasing the part of you they think still belongs to them. He didn't answer. But later, when I walked past the hearth, I saw he'd drawn again. Not dots this time. A tree tall with bare limbs. And beneath it a nest. Inside one bird. Next to it, one small figure. Standing guard. I didn't ask who the bird was. Or the figure. Didn't have to. The wind that night had teeth. Not angry, just insistent. Like it was testing the windows, poking at every gap, asking, you still holding together? Inside the cabin was warm, but the kind of warmth you earn. Fire, low stew, thick silence, heavy. Caleb sat near the hearth, back straight eyes, tracing the dancing shadows like they were maps. He hadn't said a word since the riders left. Didn't need to. We both knew they'd be back. He'd drawn again in the ash, 3 dots, same as before. This time, though, there was no line between them, just space, distance. That night, he didn't curl up on the floor near the fire like usual. He dragged his blanket closer to my chair, still didn't touch me, still didn't speak. But closeness was its own kind of language. In the morning, I found a pine shaving on the sill. Not a carving yet, just the start of one. A gesture, a promise he hadn't put words to. We had coffee thick enough to chew, and he drank his with both hands, steam kissing his face like he wasn't used to warmth staying long. I watched him break his bread into 4 even pieces again, ate 2 this time. Left 2 wrapped in cloth under the cot. Survival habits die slow. That afternoon, we hauled wood to the lean-to. I didn't ask him to help. He just did. Picked up the kindling I dropped. Matched his pace to mine. Didn't speak. But every movement said, I'm here. I'm still here. When we reached the porch, his eyes lingered on the axe beside the stump. Not fear in them. Recognition. That made my stomach knot. I didn't ask what he saw when he looked at that axe. Didn't need to. Sometimes silence carries more truth than 100 words. Inside, I cleaned a trout I'd pulled from the creek before dawn. He came to me holding a chipped bowl, hands cupped around it like it was something holy. Inside, dry beans. Old. Probably forgotten under the sink. He didn't say anything, just held them out. I nodded, took the bowl, dropped them into the pot beside the fish. It wasn't the offering that got me, it was how he held it. Like a boy who didn't have much left but still wanted to give what he could. Later that evening, he hummed. No tune I knew, just a string of soft sounds like thread winding through air. My daughter used to hum like that during storms. Not because she wasn't afraid, but because humming made the fear quieter. Caleb's voice had that same tremble. Not weakness, not anymore. Resilience. That night I carved. Didn't rush. Didn't aim for pretty. Just let the blade shape pine into something honest. A horse. Not galloping, not fierce. Just standing, its ears tilted forward, listening. Before dawn, I set it on the sill where he'd see it. Didn't leave a note, didn't say it was his. If he wanted it, he'd take it. If he didn't, that was okay too. When he woke, he didn't touch it. Just looked at it for a long while, then turned away quiet. But that look, it wasn't refusal. It was respect. Trust doesn't come in gifts. It comes in being seen and not pushed. By the 3rd week, he lingered longer in the same room. Didn't vanish when I walked in. Watched how I stitched an old blanket, how I sharpened the knife with slow, even rhythm. Not just watching to learn, watching to remember. Children don't watch strangers like that. They watch people they might one day forgive. I had to go into town again. Couldn't put it off anymore. Left him with Widow Langery, kind woman, even if her spine was made of vinegar and pew. Promised to watch him for an hour while I fetched flour and oil. When I came back, the cabin felt wrong. Not broken, not cold, just still. Too still. The door creaked when I opened it. The fire was low but lit, quilt folded. Cot empty. My stomach turned. Then I saw it. The carving. Gone from the sill. And beside it, the silver locket I'd cleaned just the night before. Vanished. Outside, the frost bit at my lungs. I scanned the ground, breath fogging the air. Tracks. Small. Barefoot. Moving north toward the woods. She hadn't run. She'd walked. Like a child answering a question only she could hear. Like something had called her back. I followed his tracks through frost and shadow. They were shallow, slow, like a boy not running, just leaving. That's what got me. He wasn't fleeing. He was answering something. A pull. A voice in the dark he still thought he had to obey. Snow clung to the prints like memory. Step after step, northbound, winding through thinning trees toward the old road. Same one I swore I'd never walk again, unless it was to bury a past I couldn't quite name. Then I saw it. A crooked wagon tilted into the ditch. One wheel snapped fire, smoking low beside it. 3 men circled the blaze like coyotes, too cold to sleep. One had a bottle, one had a rope, one wore a red scarf, bright as blood against the dusk. And Caleb, standing near the fire, not chained, not struck, but still trapped. He wasn't crying, wasn't screaming, just still. That kind of stillness a child learns when every noise brings risk. His feet were bleeding at the edges, raw from the cold torn from thorns. But his back was straight, shoulders set like he was bracing for whatever came next. The man with the bottle leaned in, grinning. This what they sent back, he said. Should have stayed tied. The one with the scarf kicked snow toward him. Caleb didn't flinch, just stepped back, closer to the flames. That's when I stepped into the clearing. No warning, no shout. Just the sound of snow under boot and the calm weight of a rifle across my shoulder. All 3 men turned. The bottle man squinted. You got no business here, stranger. He came back, I said, and that should have told you everything you needed to know. The scarfed man sneered. She's with you then. I let that hang, let them wonder. Then stepped between them and the boy. Caleb didn't run to me. Didn't speak. He just shifted behind me. Not hiding, just standing in my shadow. That was enough. The man with the rope narrowed his eyes. You aiming to fight for something that ain't yours. I looked at him long and level. He walked away from you, I said. That makes him his own. He's payment bottle man muttered. Owed for what his mama couldn't settle. That's when Caleb's voice broke through. Quiet, but sharp as frostbite. You left her. He was staring at the rope man now. You tied me to the post. Took the horses, said I was more useful traded than fed. The man didn't speak. Didn't deny it. Didn't even look sorry. I placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder. We're going home, I said. He didn't nod. Didn't look up, but he stepped with me. One foot, then the next. And just like that, we turned our backs on them. They didn't follow. Some fights don't need bullets. Sometimes silence does what firepower can't. By the time we reached the cabin, dusk had thickened into that soft, heavy purple that settles over the pines like a sigh. Caleb's steps slowed halfway up the path. I lifted him, felt his weight lean into me, not heavy, just trusting. Inside, I cleaned his feet without speaking. The blood came easy. The damage didn't. He didn't cry, just watched the flame while I wrapped his heels in linen, torn from my last good shirt. They had her shawl, he whispered. The red one, with the birds. I didn't ask. Didn't need to. Grief's never just about the person gone. It's about what they took with them when they left. I set the carving beside his bedroll, the one with the 3 figures. He didn't touch it, just watched my hands. They were cracked, rough, scarred. But he didn't seem afraid of them anymore. That night, he asked to sleep by the hearth again. So I dragged my roll next to his, close enough that if he reached out, he wouldn't find air. I woke once to the soft scrape of his finger in the ash. He was drawing. Not dots. A horse. A rider. A second figure, smaller, holding on. At breakfast, he held the carving tight and asked, Mama said I wasn't worth keeping. Do you think? She was wrong. I crouched beside him, met his eyes. I think you're still here. He didn't answer. But he didn't look away. Later that day, we walked into town. His boots were too big, stuffed with rags. His coat swallowed him whole. But he walked steady. And when folks stared, whispered, That's the boy. That's the one the cowboy took in. He didn't shrink. Didn't flinch. Outside the general store, a boy near the pump shouted, Why's he got a strange kid living with him? Caleb looked to me. I knelt. You want to answer? He looked at the boy, then at me. Then said soft but clear, Because he came back. That night there was a note nailed to the barn. You will pay for what ain't yours. I didn't show him. But he already knew. He didn't draw that night. Didn't hum. Just whispered before sleep. We need a third. For who, I asked. His eyes were wide but calm. For the storm that's coming. The snow came again that night. Not angry. Not loud, just slow, steady flakes floating down like the sky was trying to hush the earth. She slept deep, curled by the hearth, wrapped in that old star-stitched quilt, like it had finally found the shoulders it was sewn for. Me, I sat at the window watching the ridgeline. Not in fear, but in knowing. We both understood it wouldn't be over just because the fire was warm and the door was latched. At dawn, I carved one last piece. Pine, smooth, no knots. 3 figures, one tall, one small one in between. Not quite touching, but close enough that the spaces between them meant something. When she woke, I handed it to her. She turned it in her hands slow. Which one's me, she asked. I smiled. You tell me. She looked up, really looked, and for the first time, she didn't seem lost. They're not going to stop, are they? No, I said, but neither are we. That night, she helped build the fire. No sparks, no roar, just a quiet, glowing heat. The kind that lasts. We shelled beans. She hummed soft under her breath. I carved a little more. Not a hawk this time. Not even a horse. But a family hands joined faces turned toward wind and distance, like they knew storms would come, and chose to stand anyway. She asked to help carve next time. I handed her the knife. She held it steady. And just like that, no ceremony, no grand words, she became mine. And I hers. Sometimes the most powerful kind of love doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock loud or blaze bright. It just stays. It's the kind that shows up when no one else does. The kind that holds steady in silence. That says you're not too much. You're not too broken. You're home. If this story stirred something in you, even just a small flicker, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment. Share a memory. Tell us about the time someone stood beside you when you had nothing left but breath, or when you stood for someone else. And if you'd like to walk more of these quiet trails with us, subscribe to Still Winds of the West. Not just for the stories, but for the stillness they carry. Like wind between the mountains. Like love that never needed to speak to be real. We'll be here, waiting. Until next time, friend.